My name is Wanjau. I work for Dell Technologies. All right, that's my name up there. Please feel free to reach out to me once we're done here. We have a stand at the back. We'll be able to exchange contacts, exchange ideas, and then also set up some more engagements, deeper engagements, probably more meaningful than just the 15 minutes. But here I'm going to talk about edge computing, and more specifically, how that's bringing banking, or rather more broadly financial services industry, to be more relevant to the customers and the services that you're trying to provide to your customers. So not really about network or edge of the network. It's really, when we talk about the edge, really the discussion we're having is about data. How you're collecting the data, smartly, cost-effectively, timely, and then how you're using it and capitalizing it for the services that you as in fintech or FSI are needing to provide to your customers. So really when I say edge, from Dell's perspective, we really focus on the data itself because that's really kind of like the crown jewels of it, right? And the technology and the investments that are going into edge technology, which we're going to talk about that, is really how we make that whole collection of data, analyzing, and then having it being something that you can use to enhance your customer experience, your products more relevant. But then let's take a look. I mean, if we hear today's technology discussions, one of the biggest trends besides ChatGPT, AI, is edge. And the funny thing is, as a sidetrack, if I sidetrack a little bit here, AI has actually been driven by edge because AI relies on data, a lot of data. But that data is being collected where the users are, where the customers and the consumers are. But then now AI is actually driving edge because you need to gobble up even more data. But then this slide here is just showing you the evolution when you talk about trends in IT, because we are coming from basically different industrialization eras. And we are now talking about the fourth revolution, which is really data-driven. And we're talking about an edge-enabled revolution from an industrial perspective. Everybody is having an edge device, or two, or three, right now in this room. At the very minimum, you have a mobile phone. Some of you have smartwatches, and other type of gadgets that you're holding or carrying along with you. Those are edge devices. And those are all collecting data for one or more of your service providers. Could be the cellular phone or the smartphone manufacturer, could be the services that are running on it, the Googles and the Apples and the like, but also application vendors that are actually installed on those, okay? So this is a big thing, and it's actually monetizable. Now, let's talk about use cases more relevant to the audience here. Edge obviously applies to pretty much in every industry now that is digitizing. But I want to focus mostly on the second item there, which is retail, and more specifically on the retail banking and FSI side of things, which is my next slide. And there are many use cases for edge. I've listed some of them, or kind of shown some of them up there. I'm not going to go through all of them for obvious reasons. We don't have that time. But one of the ones that I find interesting is something that's been mentioned here quite a few times, know your customer. But it's more than that. It's more of like a hyper-personalization of, or let's say the hyper-personalization of the services you're providing your customers. Because if I, as your customer, am not feeling that you're individually talking to me, it's more of like a static broadcast of some advertisement or some pitching of some product that you're trying to do, it's not going to resonate with me, and I'll pass it over. What you're seeing, the edge use case coming into play, whether it's a branch for your bank or a fintech service, is where basically you're using the data that you're collecting from me, legally, obviously, but not just the data I'm inputting, but myself It could be my image. It could be what I'm wearing. It could be what I drove into your car lot with. What time I came into your premise. How many people did I come with? Really detailed stuff which can then allow you over time to understand me better. This is really the power of data. Other things which are operational, which is like, maybe all this information you're gathering from me doesn't need to move from one location to another because of privacy issues, data locality issues. So you need to have this information collected at source and processed there, and gives you the insights you need right there without having to move it to what we are all very good at, in many, especially those are in the banking sector here, having large data centers, central data centers, that are used to be the ones to collect all this data and store it there and do the analytics. But then your customers are in Kericho, Kampala, whatever the case may be. But you need to have somewhere to be able to analyze that data. We're good at that. What we have to be good at is actually realizing the data is being generated out there at the edge. But really, it's about where the data localities are for the source of that data, which is your customers. So various use cases. Another one that comes to mind is, we often have these discussions, is fraud detection. And that's the last one I want to mention here. We can double click on each one of these, or separately, offline, and we can go into each of those use cases. But fraud detection actually is something interesting because it needs to happen quickly. If you're relying on some information having to be moved back through an MPLS line to your data center and then queued up with the rest of the corporate's processing before it's then analyzed and detected, by the way, there's something wrong with this transaction. It's typically too late. So you're starting doing investigations of post-incident investigations, while in real time it could have been stopped at the edge because the processing is happening there. These are real-life examples, or real, actual examples I'm talking about, which are in use today with some of our customers around the world. So there are challenges in terms of putting edge computing, edge processing in various locations that you have distributed branches. Obviously, there are challenges to that. One of the challenges, do I need to actually have my infrastructure computing components spread out across all of Kenya, all of East Africa, across the whole Africa region? That's a lot of sprawl and a headache to manage. Second one is security. Actually, I'll just jump to the last one here, which is a key one, which is security aspect of it. The more you have sprawl of all this processing and infrastructure that's out there, sensors and CCTVs that are facial detections and things like this, and they are processing locally, of course, your attack plane is more, meaning you have more attack vectors as a corporate across the region. So those are real concerns. It's not something you can say, I will not do it because of, but these are concerns and challenges that we need to address. So what we do then, from a Dell's Technologies perspective, is we help you simplify this approach. The approach is very broad. You sitting on this side have a different use case and requirement, and even your whole corporate architecture in terms of your IT and the services you're providing are different from you sitting on this side. What we know is that it's not just the products and the equipment and the components, physical components that you need to deploy out there to be able to provide you this enhanced competitive advantage by using edge technology. But really, the most important part is how to do it. And that's services and software. This is where we focus on Dell Technologies. So we have the infrastructure, but we also focus on the how, which is the services, and of course the software to secure those environments. This is really what I've summarized, as I say that for this slide here, is to simplify your deployments or your embracing of these technologies. And how do we do that? First of all, Dell Technologies has been in the infrastructure business for over 3 decades. And we lead in each of those technologies, whether it's compute, storage, data protection, basically the whole data center, end user computing, all those, we lead in that. So that's done. Lots of details, lots of products in that. That's great. But then we also get into the whole aspect of bringing this all together in terms of how do we integrate a hardened compute, which doesn't require a data center. It's sitting in front there in your shop floor or your branch. It's not cooled. It's not needing to be air filtered or things like this because it's in an actual branch. It's not in a data center. How do you bring that to run applications that are going to be able to connect to your sensors, whether it's CCTVs, your POS, or whatever it is that you're running in those branches, and integrate it to applications that can bring you those insights. So the whole aspect of the whole stack, right? So reducing that complexity from infrastructure to the services. And then we consolidate that in terms of how you manage them. So if you have 100 branches, I was talking to a bank that has 91 branches just in Kenya, and we needed to actually figure out, once you roll out all this, how do you manage it centrally? All right, so those are technologies we're able to provide as well. And some of the things I'm showing there are some of the ways we're able to do it and protect the data that's being generated and being analyzed, because you need to make sure that is not compromised or you don't lose it. And if something happens, you're able to recover from it, from backups and things like that. Obviously, protection is one of the things which, security, that is something which we focus on. And I put this slide here as one of my last slides to say that, this is some predictions that IDC did some time back in 2020, saying, maybe it's not so important we protect that data that's in our branches and these other locations because we don't use it that much, or it's not that much, it's not that in terms of quantity. But back in 2020, 5% of companies said they didn't have data out there in their locations, distributed locations. 80% of them said they were having some kind of regulations playing into it. That was in 2020. And I like this slide here because today, pretty much 0 of you would say your data is all central in a data center. And 100% of all of you in this industry, are impacted one or another with some data protection regulation of some sort. So things have moved very quickly, and that's where we are today. So let me say, as I finish up here, 30 seconds, that as an infrastructure company, yes, we have the technology, both the physical, the skill set, the expertise, and even the actual software to be able to bridge your services to the infrastructure it needs to be able to run most efficiently with the data for your customers. We have many products in this, and this is just a view. One of the things here which you can see clearly is missing from the screen is the services, the consultative services and the deployment integration services that Dell provides. So I'll stop there because my time is up. Just by saying that Dell Technologies is here in Nairobi, in Kenya, in East Africa. We don't do this from remote. We have a large team that is able to work with you in whichever part of the journey you're in terms of transforming your organization's service delivery, your digitization journey, with our expertise here on the ground, being able to help you in that partnership to reach your goals. Thank you very much. Looking forward to talking to each one of you, or as many of you as you'd like back there, but also continue this discussion in the future. Thank you.